North Korea is a beautiful, beautiful country for those who are anti-gun and think only the police and military should own guns. It's a beautiful socialist paradise. So if you're against people like me owning firearms, I would love to help pay for your one-way ticket to North Korea. Van life, van life, van life. Van life, van life, van life. It's just incredible.tv. Yo! What's going on all? It was a really long day at work today. I was stuck in, you saw my last video where I'm driving through the city on my own time in my motorhome, and it was pretty bad traffic. Well, today it took 2.5 hours to get from one end of Vancouver to the other through downtown. It was just a parking lot. It was nuts. But again, I just cranked up the radio and realized, hey, I'm on the clock, I'm getting paid. So it's really not a big deal, and it just makes my beer at the end of the day taste that much better. So, this is going to be a quick one. This is a response to the video I did about a week and a half ago, buying my new boomsticks, my new toys. And a couple of people asked, I guess, well, they're not in Canada, so they're curious about the firearm laws in Canada and how it relates to van life. So I'm going to break this down really simply for those of you who are in this country and, of course, in other countries like the USA. I'll just read one of the comments to you. Genial or Genial, I'm not sure. Genial Harry Grout says, I always thought that Canadians' attitude to gun ownership and use was tiny in comparison to the USA. It looks like I was wrong. Or is it that Canadians have a better mentality towards guns, gun ownership, and gun use than Americans, who seem to view shooting people as normal thing, like buying coffee? What are the laws about keeping a gun if you live in a van? It must be difficult to store a weapon securely in such a space. Okay. I take issue with a couple of things there. I think it all comes down to perception. First of all, you call a firearm a weapon. I don't agree. I seem to see that more south of the border than up here. A weapon is a dirty word. A firearm can be a weapon. So can my van. So can a Home Depot truck, like what happened in New York, or a moving van attack in France. I mean, these things happen all the time. Car bombs, baseball bats, knives. In fact, knives, swimming pools, cars, you name it, they take a lot more lives than guns ever do. The point is, anything can be a weapon. It's up to the operator to choose whether they're going to use it as a weapon or not. And the biggest argument that gun control advocates have against that is, well, the guns are designed just to be killing machines. They're designed to kill people. Bullshit! Guns are designed to hit a target from a distance. The vast majority are manufactured for sport shooting and hunting, not to point at a human being, first of all. Now, even if I indulged these people, and even if I lost a few brain cells and I suddenly agreed that guns are killing machines designed to kill human beings, even if I was that stupid to think that, they're very terrible at it compared to cars and kitchen knives and multitudes of other things, because the other things kill way more people than guns do. Alright? Yes, anybody can take a whole bunch of numbers and make it look scary. Like in the USA last year, X hundreds of people were killed by firearms. What they don't tell you is there are over, 320 or 340 million firearms? So if a few hundred killed people, holy shit, that means guns are one of the safest legal products in existence. If only we had a success rate with no injuries and no deaths that high for so many other legal products, I bet you dressers falling on people hurt more people than guns do. You have to put things in perspective. when people throw out their numbers to try to scare you. And the vast majority of them are caused by illegal firearms and gangs. It's not a gun problem, it's a gang problem. Even here in Canada, it's the same thing. The vast majority of shootings, which happen quite often in major cities, are gang-related with illegal firearms. Now, that's not to say that there aren't bad people and bad things don't happen, like the shooting in Vegas and wherever else. But I mean, you know, a guy used fertilizer and blew up a building in Oklahoma and killed over 160 people in seconds, and not a single gun was used. If a killer wants to kill, they're gonna kill. But to take away hundreds of millions of legally owned firearms, or make it harder for all of those people to own those firearms because somebody does something bad? No, I'm sorry, we don't live in North Korea. I live in a free country, the USA as well. So, you're damn right there shouldn't be more restrictions on people like me because somebody decides to do something bad. Why aren't they making it harder for me to register and drive my van around? Didn't you hear about the attack in New York with the Home Depot truck? Imagine what my van could do if I chose to drive it into a crowd of people. There is a difference between Canada and the USA in the mentality of firearm ownership in some ways. For example, almost nobody thinks of a firearm as something for self-defense here, except maybe in a shit hits the fan situation, a zombie attack, or something like that. It's kind of a nice side effect, I guess, of owning a firearm, but people really generally don't buy them for that reason. People love sport shooting, target shooting, skeet shooting, hunting. Hunting is huge. Obviously, Canada's the second biggest country in the world. There's lots of places you can go hunting. Hell, a Canadian holds the world record for shooting an ISIS member at 3.5 kilometers away. There are millions of firearms in Canada as well. If you were to break down the numbers, there's actually almost as many rifles owned by Canadians as there are by Americans per capita. The best estimates show about 3 out of 10 households in Canada have firearms. Now, the average gun owner in Canada, though, owns a lot of firearms. One of my buddies owns 26 rifles. So even if the other 7 houses on the block don't have firearms, those 3 make up for the other 7. You see what I'm saying? Most Canadians who own guns own a lot of guns. It's addictive. Trust me, I've caught the bug now. Now, as far as legalities goes, like you all saw in my last video, or a couple videos ago, we have more restrictions in some ways than you have in the USA, but we also have less restrictions in other ways. Like, for example, I can go and buy an 8-inch shotgun off the shelf. You don't need any special paperwork. What do they call tax stamps down in the States? And the laws here are also federal, nationwide. There's no different laws from province to province. So you can drive and travel through the entire country, and it's the same laws. What I've heard from people down south is the laws are very different from state to state. And I'm a card-carrying member of the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, and soon to be these guys, the NFA. They're the ones who have this beautiful logo, which everyone seems to love, and they always ask me where to get the shirt. You can buy the stickers, shirts, everything from the National Firearms Association, nfa.ca. Go check them out. But the reason I'm a member of these groups, and I promote and I support shooting sports, is because I don't want Canada to ever become the next UK or the next Australia or the next New York or California, for that matter, or Chicago, Illinois. Those places have much stricter regulations in many ways than we do in Canada. In Canada, it's the blanket law for the entire country. Everyone takes a safety test. You have to pass a federal course for firearm safety. You get your license. You go buy your guns. Simple as that. I've got no problem with that. It's just like I wouldn't want people driving on the road without a driver's license. I feel the same way when I'm at a range or out in the woods and people are shooting. I like to know that they're at least trained and they know the do's and don'ts of handling a firearm. So I've got no problem with that. And, of course, we get background checks. Back to the attitude thing, though. Like, not only do we not generally buy firearms for self-defense reasons, even though there's been a lot of cases in Canada where people have used guns for self-defense and you have to go to court and all that, but as long as you can prove to the court that your use of force was justified, it's fine. But if give you an example. If someone breaks into your house and they're coming at you with a weapon and you pull out your gun and use it in self-defense, that's justified. Okay? But if you chase them out of your house or you scare them away and they're running away but they're still on your property and you decide to shoot them, you're going to jail, not the criminal. That's the difference. But down in places like Australia, people are losing their guns and getting charged simply for showing their firearms to intruders. It's disgusting down there. You should never have to live like that on your own property. So it's a really touchy situation. Now, I'm no lawyer. Please don't take anything I say on this channel as some sort of legal advice. But I can tell you that I've been involved in activism and in the community for a while. In fact, you can check out my website, CanadaLovesGuns.ca, for a few tidbits of info about this wonderful country and our love for firearms. So we are out there, but we're not as vocal about it. You won't see Canadians walking around in the streets with their rifles. Even though it's technically totally legal to do so, as long as they're unloaded and you have your license, you won't see many people do that unless you're in small towns or out in the country. It's a good way to taste the concrete when the RCMP or the local police department, is pushing you down into the curb. You don't want to do that in a city. And it's mostly because of fear-mongering in media. Media has brainwashed so many people because of all the scare stories. And it's just like anything else these days. I bet you all saw the scary photo of that polar bear the other day and how they tried to link it to climate change. But now all the other stories are coming out showing, look, it's just a sick bear. Guess what? There are sick bears once in a while. Just like there's sick any species on the planet, there's sick human beings too, and they end up dying. Survival of the fittest. That's nature for you. Apparently that bear had a broken leg. Well, of course it's dying and starving to death. But of course somebody had to go and try to, well, it's climate change. It's because of you and your SUV that this bear is starving to death and pulling at everyone's heartstrings. It's such a load of crap. It's obvious, blatant propaganda, but it's amazing how many people fell for it because it's all over their media, all over their internet, all over Facebook. It's the same thing with the gun debate. There shouldn't even be a debate. Millions of people own them. Very rarely is one used improperly. Very rarely. So it's the last thing we should be worrying about. There's so many other actual problems to worry about in this day and age in both Canada and the USA. Now, when it comes to storage in a van, in Canada we have 3 classifications for firearms. There is prohibited. Prohibited are like fully automatics or certain firearms that you can't own or can't buy legally. Unless you're grandfathered in and you own them before the classifications came in. There is restricted firearms. That covers most handguns and certain rifles, especially if they look scary, because apparently that means that they're more powerful. It's the same thing in the States. And then there's non-restricted, which my firearms all are. I have both a restricted and non-restricted license, so I can go and buy handguns, but can't store a handgun legally in the RV unless I have an authorization to transport it. That means I have to be going to a range or a gun shop or something like that. It's just not worth the hassle. It would be literally impossible to do that legally. Non-restricted, exactly what it means, non-restricted. So you can have 100 guns in the trunk of your Honda Civic or on the passenger seat. It doesn't matter as long as you have your non-restricted license and they're not loaded. And there's some other tidbits, some little rules for safe storage and whatnot. But as long as it's non-restricted, my shotgun's non-restricted, my semi-automatic is non-restricted, my BB gun is obviously non-restricted. So you can store all these in the van. Now, never have I once said I store all this stuff in my actual van. But they're in my van sometimes, obviously, when I go to the range or whatever. That being said, though, it's perfectly legal. I could store my guns on my walls, on my ceiling, whatever. And it's totally legal to do. And you can drive across the entire nation, the second biggest country on earth, from province to province to territory, wherever you want. And it's the same blanket law. So hopefully that kind of answers your questions about the legalities of owning a firearm with van life. It's up to you if you want to do it. Everyone's got their own opinions on it. That's great. That's what makes it a free country. I'm so glad we don't live in North Korea. Keep on rocking in this free world.
You are watching Just Incredible TV.
Want to see more? Become a patron and see exclusive content. Plus, see new, just incredible videos before anyone on YouTube. Head over to patreon.com/JCredTV and keep on rocking in the free world.